Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get started in just a minute once we give everybody a chance to come on in from the waiting room. Thanks for joining us today. We're just going to give it about another 30 seconds to a minute to let people come on and join us from the waiting room. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started right now. I'm Maggie Bittner, Head of Education for SIA, and today we have Tom Groves with NuORDER from us to talk us through some best tips for online selling. As we all know, the buying selling landscape has changed dramatically this year. So I know more of us are looking for best practices at this point in time, and Tom can talk us through those. If you do have questions, we will be addressing them at the end. So please go ahead and use the Q&A box that's down at the bottom of your screen, and I'll be keeping an eye on those. We will be recording this presentation and it will be posted on our website within the next 24 hours. So feel free to check back then or share it with any colleagues who you think may be interested. I think that's about it. So Tom, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Maggie. Hi, guys. So I'm going to be taking you through the masterclass for online selling today. So I'm Tom. I'm from NuORDER. I've been with NuORDER a couple of years, but I've been working in B2B wholesale for about 5 years now, and I've worked across a number of industries, including outdoor, consumer electronics, fashion, and sports as well. So you can probably see there the cringe photo of me as well. And it wasn't actually superimposed. It was me when I was kind of on holiday skiing in January. So I do have a love of Snowsports myself, which is probably why I'm the one running this webinar from NuORDER today. So bit of an overview of what we're going to go over and what we're going to cover. So we'll start off by looking at the state of wholesale. So NuORDER ran a survey recently, so I'll be presenting some of the trends and analysis and give you a bit of a snapshot of the industry and how brands are feeling after a bit of a strange year in 2020. We'll then discuss the shift to virtual and how you can all start this process yourself, some tips and tricks. I'll be offering some best practices for moving to digital selling, as well as some quick wins that you can put in place right now to make a difference to your business. I'll then run you through some real world examples and some case studies from some outdoor brands that NuORDER work with today. And then we'll end with a bit of Q&A at the end, like Maggie said at the start. Okay, so a bit on the state of wholesale. So when COVID hit, it was clear to everyone, including myself, that everyone kind of panicked and they didn't know what was going to happen. Happened for business, for the economy, even for our personal lives. There was a lot of contrasting perspectives within the industry that were kind of thrown around. I definitely heard wholesale is dead, as well as wholesale will be bigger than ever from other people. So you don't know which one to believe. And if you're anything like me, I found it difficult to understand what was really going on and what the sentiment within the market really was. So rather than jumping in with our own, NuORDER perspective, we wanted to gather information, across brands and retailers to see how, each was tackling the challenges before them. So we opted for this survey route. So we kind of did some research and we asked kind of questions to approximately 700 small and large brands across a number of different verticals, including, outdoor. So a big sector was outdoor within this. And while we did hear from people who were kind of newer to the wholesale industry, as you can see from the graph, 41% of our respondents were veterans of the industry, having over 16 years experience within it. From many of the brands we heard from, 60% of their business was wholesale. with 60% of that wholesale business coming from big box retailers versus 40% from that more independent specialty boutique. So I wanted to show you this, seeing as a number of the brands surveyed were in the outdoor industry and are likely experiencing, some of the trends and concerns that you guys might have who are on this webinar today. I think one of the important things to note here is that, change began before COVID. The wholesale process was overdue for a refresh. And every brand on this webinar today will have seen how, B2C, so business to consumer, has dramatically changed over the last decade. Yet the wholesale process has been, a bit slower to adapt. And, they need to change, going forward. So, as key innovative brands, you create and design amazing products. You shoot these in great detail, for your website, for your social channels. You might get your samples together, get in your van, load up the goods, and then hit the road and go and present to a range of your customers around the USA and around the world. And this has been the norm for a long time. However, the growth of the business to consumer side of the market and the growing pains that brick and mortar retailers are experiencing were generating conversations over the need for a more agile and sustainable wholesale process. So it really is important to note that this change was happening well before 2020. This has just kind of accelerated it. So, many were pointing to overproduction and seasonal cycles that were impossible to keep up with. Not to mention that far too much of the industry is still relying on, an outdated ordering system, pen and paper, back of a fag packet, fax in some cases. In NuORDER, we've seen firsthand that, the foot traffic within these trade shows is really dwindling compared to before. And brands are starting to adopt new strategies of working with their retail partners. So I'm going to keep saying this again, change was happening pre-COVID. It was just at a slower pace. And 2020, COVID-19, this has really accelerated this change, not created it. So as you can see on the graph, of those we heard from, 82% have seen the industry change, whether moderately or drastically. And those that have been in the industry a long time have said that the biggest changes that they've seen are retailers shifting away from pre-book to more immediate and in-season purchasing to reduce that risk of overstock. So this is something, as brands, we really have to think about when working with retailers. Obviously, we don't want to take on too much stock ourselves. So it's all about that collaboration between the retailer and yourself as a brand. While those newer to the kind of the wholesale industry, they said, more collaboration between brands and retailers is the biggest change that they've witnessed, over the last 12, 24 months. So this is a key aspect that brands need to listen to regarding the shift to like immediate stock and immediate ordering rather than pre-book. And this collaboration between the brand and the buyer is going to be more important than ever as we go into 2021 and onwards. So I wanted to show you some of the trends from the outdoor industry in particular. And this is basically telling us what the primary tool is for capturing orders within the different sectors. So as you can see at the bottom, you have the outdoor row. The outdoor brands are leaning heavily towards B2B systems and B2B platforms to capture their orders over any other vertical. 58%, that's higher than, men's apparel, footwear, accessories, and beauty as well. So the outdoor industry is ahead of the game in this respect. And these outdoor brands are most likely meeting buyers and retailers who are already really familiar with a digital solution. And so, those buyers do expect some form of digital meeting and visualization. So I guess, the key thing here is not to be left behind. While, a lot of your competitors and other brands will be, progressing ahead with their digital solutions. If you don't have them, then maybe you'll be left behind slightly, especially if your buyers are demanding it. A bit more from kind of the outdoor industry. Just wanted to highlight the, what outdoor brands responded to most for their plans for wholesale going forward. And you can see at the bottom again, the brands reported trying to sell more into their existing accounts as a way to grow the business the most. So sell into existing accounts most, build your relationships, really work on that collaborative aspect with your kind of key relationships that you already have in place. And this again highlights the need for this closer collaboration between all brands and all buyers at your retail partner level. So in our survey, it was reported that one of the greatest benefits in really digitizing your wholesale process is that it provides a better overall customer experience for the retailer and the buyer. So buyers are looking to buy products with more accurate and comprehensive information, more imagery, more data, and that includes data on bestsellers, the more like in the moment, what's on trend, as well as immediate orders, so immediate purchases, rather than focusing on pre-booking for 6 months or 12 months time. So they want to work a lot more kind of in the moment, which does involve taking less stock risk from a retailer perspective. But this can be done a number of ways, which we're going to discuss in a minute. But you need to think about the best option for your brand that can provide the following key benefits. So you need it to be appealing visualizations of product as well as the brand story. It's both in terms of the product, but you need to describe what you went through, what your key inspiration is for the season, so they can understand what it means to them. Second, a way to enable faster, easier, and anytime selling. Buyers are all working from home as well. They might be working late into the night, they might be working in the morning. So being flexible with them is the key thing here. And also to choose a route that provides an overall better customer experience for your retail partners. So there's a number of different ways in which you can digitalize your business, and we're going to go over a few examples in a minute. Our survey findings showed that brands who are using a B2B digital solution, a bit like NuORDER or one of our competitors, before COVID-19, have been the most successful over the past year and have the most positive outlook on the future of their brand. So it's clear, outdoor industry is progressing ahead of the rest, and it's a good place to be. So we just need to keep developing as we go forward into 2021. And as you can see on the right, we have some real world quotes from brands that you're aware of. So Arc'teryx, they shared the virtual showroom will change the way we sell. While a lot of folks might be afraid of the idea, once we get a buyer to look at it and see how easy it is to use, the vast majority are open to this new way of buying. So it really shows how big players in the market are taking this seriously, and it's not just for COVID; it's here to stay. Also at the bottom, you can see what Technica Group shared. So investing and implementing NuORDER is another way for us to show our specialty retail partners how important they are to us, as well as the industry as a whole. The new platform will provide a consistent level of access to our brands through every stage of the buying process, building even greater trust and confidence in our relationship. So again, it's that collaboration piece and flexibility piece with working with your retail partners. And it's clear, buyers do expect more nowadays, but I do appreciate that everyone's budget is different. Not everyone has, unlimited budget to spend on big, B2B systems. So, think about what you can do as a brand. So from what we've seen so far, I think everyone would agree that retail buyers are expecting some kind of change. And this is where you, as key brands in your area, should start thinking differently and considering how a move to digital can really benefit your brand in the short term and the long term. As you can see from the circle on the screen, from our survey, over 70% of brands reported to use or have used a B2B tool in the selling process at some stage. And it doesn't have to be a full-on B2B solution. There can be other quick wins, which I'll show you on the next few slides. As more and more brands choose to invest in kind of digital, it's important you don't get left behind. And I do appreciate, you have some questions or some concerns here, and you're probably thinking, yeah, this all makes sense. But what you're saying is much easier said than done. It takes time, it takes money. And I do appreciate that. You might have concerns over budget or bandwidth, maybe just time and resource. But there's a lot of things you can do to pivot quickly that can relate to these quick wins that you can put in place right now. So some of the key considerations before deciding what to do as a business, think about work you've already completed. Obviously think about your budget. What funds can you put towards this, if any? Your resource. How many people do you have on your team? Is it just one person, or do you have a bit of a team around you that can help build this up? And how much time do you have? Obviously the market is fast approaching. January is only 6 weeks away. So we need to focus on the things that are going to make the most difference to you as a brand, as well as your retailers. So what are these quick wins? So kind of, as I just mentioned, there's some concerns around just how much work it would be to transition to digital selling. But if we just take a moment to step back and think about this, it's likely you've already done a lot of the work. You've probably done a lot of work for your website, for social channels, for digital marketing. Really make use of this. The wholesale side of the business, whilst it's a different channel, it doesn't have to be different content. It's going to be the same product. It's going to be the same information. So really just make the most of this when you're selling to your retail partners. So a lot of the time, you'll already have shot the imagery for your upcoming season. This can be used for your buyers. The more imagery they see, the better the experience for the buyer, especially when we're doing everything virtually, in 2020 and 2021. A key aspect to get your brand, to get across to the retailer is the brand story. So the inspiration for the new season, what are you focusing on? Is it based on a certain consumer demand? Is it based on a fashion trend? Is it a shift in market, or just the environment, or just a love of one of the designers and one of the owners of the company wanting to focus on certain things? You have all of this information already. It will have been part of the design process, and you likely talk about it with your end consumers on your social channels. So once again, just make the most of this work that you've already done and use it to educate and collaborate with your buyers and retail partners as you go through this process. Buyers have always needed product information and data to make informed buying decisions throughout each of their markets. But nowadays, it's pretty clear this is more important than ever. Your product best, the specs, what makes it better than the rest. So you need to make sure your buyer does too. Amalgamate this in an easy to understand way and share it with your buyer who can access it on demand and can work on the assortment whenever and wherever they please. So the key thing here is that flexibility is going to be the name of the game going forward. So flexibility and collaboration. One thing that I've used before in previous roles is this whole thing like sell sheets and top tips. So it's not just about selling your product to the retailer. Your job is not done there, because if they get to the end of the season and they have a lot of stock remaining, I think everyone knows, whose door they're going to come knocking on to take some of the stock back. So you need to help the retailers to sell your brand and sell your product. So if you spotted a gap in the market, or if you have some new, ski boot technology, then create some top tips and some sell sheets that the buyer can distribute around their retail stores. So whether it's, big box retailers and they can hand out these to their retail guys on the shop floor, or whether it's like a specialty independent and you're working with the main guy or girl there, then focus on that and show them what it's going to take to help sell your product to end consumers. The more confident the guys on the shop floor are with your brand and your product, the more likely they'll recommend it and your product will sell. And then lastly, you're used to sitting in front of your buyer. Just because it's a virtual market, it doesn't mean you can't run the appointments the way you normally do, if not better. So as an example of this, it's quite a fun one. A brand I've worked with in the UK for a bit this year always knew, they know their buyers really well. And there was one instance where they knew their buyer really well. They were, practically friends. And so they always used to, travel to their office, have the market appointment, and then they'd go out for a dinner or go out for a beer after. What they did in 2020, because they couldn't travel, is they personalized some beer bottles and they sent them to the buyer in advance of the appointment. And, not to try and sweeten them up, but just to make it a bit more normal, a bit of normality on how it usually goes. They ran the sales appointment just like normal. At the end, they opened a beer and then they had, half an hour just discussing what they went through in a more relaxed environment. So don't think that you can't do what you want to do virtually. You can do it. You just have to think of a different way around it. And try and think outside the box, try and improve on your usual process and give the buyer a reason to remember your presentation and your product and your brand over all of the others they're going to be sitting down with. And the best thing about, most of this stuff here is it's practically free. You don't have to spend any money on any of this apart from, a few beers. So I wanted to pull this slide together to kind of highlight a number of the tools that a lot of brands are using nowadays to help them transition to digital selling. So as you can see, there are a number of free tools as well as low cost and slightly higher cost. A lot of the software you probably already pay for, like, Microsoft Suite, things like that, you can use as well. So, in terms of the free aspect, you've got the virtual calling, things like Zoom, we've all heard of this year, Skype, WebEx, Google Drive, really, really good for collaboration. So if you didn't want to invest in a B2B tool itself, you can use, Google Drive, you can share docs, you can work on presentations, you can share it with your buyer in advance of your appointment, so they can start to see the collection and they can pull together any questions in advance. So it's just a way of driving collaboration between the two parties. So I really recommend, using Google Drive or Microsoft to allow for that sharing in real time. You've got things like MailChimp. I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of this. MailChimp basically tracks email outreach. So you can, work with different campaigns, send them out to numbers of buyers, and you can see who's most engaged with your brand, focus on them, and perhaps see the ones who are less focused and less engaged with your brand and put some more work into that. You also have, key software like Dropbox and WeTransfer, really, really good free resources you can use for sharing data and imagery, as well as video. So obviously right now, when we can't travel, the virtual appointment is great, but perhaps you want to shoot videos as well. I've worked with a number of brands over the past 12 months who have shot a lot of video. So, some of the big brands in the UK that I work with, they went, into their office in lockdown, into their showroom, and they literally filmed like walkthroughs of their showroom. They had kind of like hotspots on certain products. So then they could save that video, upload it to, Google Drive, or in that case to NuORDER, and their buyers can watch that video on demand to learn more about the collection and the bestsellers and things like that. And I'm trying to show you, an unbiased view here. Obviously, I'm from NuORDER, but you'll see I've mentioned NuORDER here. So it's, important to note that B2B companies, they do have a range of levels available. So you can see we have NuORDER Now, which is our light version, where you can sign up for free, give it a go. We have NuORDER Core, which is for like smaller brands, a lot more affordable. And then we have the higher cost, so the kind of NuORDER Enterprise solution, which is for the bigger brands with a lot more reps, and they're going to be working with, a lot more retailers. So we'll send this round after, and by all means, have a look at this. All of the free tools here, you probably can pay for as well. Well, I know you can pay for as well, but they do offer free trials or, light versions, so you can make the most of that and kind of try before you buy, if you like. So, as you know, outdoor has two kind of main seasons, with the main one kicking off in a few weeks' time. So what can you do to help buyers over these next few weeks? What are these quick wins that you can focus on? I think it's clear that information is key. So try and bring together as much information from your B2C for your B2B channel, both in terms of product as well as your brand story, really as much as you can provide. Keep that buyer informed. And if we can send it over and you can collaboratively work on this, they can access it on demand and they don't have to wait until you're free to have a call or have further meetings. Whatever tools you use, ensure your retailers can clearly explore your collection and understand your offering on that brand and product level. This is the key thing here. Obviously, virtual appointments are great. We'll talk about them in a bit more in a minute, and they also save on travel a lot. So you'll notice quite a bit of saving there. Then obviously, I've said it enough times today, collaboration. So use these collaborative tools such as Google Drive, Docs. You've got Slack as well. So it's really good for working in real time and chatting with your buyers. And I've got a quote here, which is a direct quote from a brand about the importance of collaboration with the retail partners. So they said, currently, partners and retailers have understood business is not usual and are partnering with us to find solves and have win-win outcomes, knowing 2020 retail environment will be a very different and challenging one compared to normal. So collaboration is key, and we're hearing this from brands and retailers as well. And you can see, on the right-hand side on the graph, that all the respondents to our survey, the vast majority are either satisfied or very satisfied with their retailer relationships, which again just highlights how key this area is. So I mentioned, how you can mimic your usual appointments virtually. And I want to give you a few tips here for how, we at NuORDER help our brands prepare and conduct their virtual appointment. This might sound really, really basic, but I've been supporting appointments this year where some of the sales reps and some of the people, they don't even know how to start a Zoom meeting or how to share their screen. So I really recommend you stick to like these 3 Ps. So prepare, practice, and present. So really, prepare the software. Make sure you know how to share your screen. You know how to, invite people to a Zoom meeting. Practice and present, your appointment. Have a run through, get a friend, get someone else in the company to watch it on screen first so you can see what works well and what doesn't work so well. Think about how you want the appointment to be run. Is it all about sharing screens and walking the buyer through like the digital collection? Or are you going to do this in your showroom in a live environment and you're going to walk people around the showroom and show them different aspects of your new collection? Perhaps it's a mix of both. If you've come up with a new ski, let's say, that revolutionizes the binding, then focus on this and demonstrate how it's different, both on like a live environment, but also using digital forms like videos, images, and sell sheets after. So really help those retail staff in the shops to sell your product. Make sure they know what the benefit is and what the difference is. And I think, one of the most important parts of the virtual appointment is what happens after. Listen to the buyer's feedback, take note, but use it to follow up with them clearly, showing the chosen styles, as well as any supporting information you can give them at that time, like imagery, videos, those sell sheets, like I said, and obviously like an easy way to order. So whether it's ordering on Excel, ordering, via email, or even ordering on a B2B system like NuORDER. I also want to kind of show you some best practice from some of our brands right now. So this is advice that, I have heard and I've got, fed back to me from a number of brands that work on NuORDER. You can see things like link your brand's social media account. So make sure, your buyers know your social media. Display all of the colors so they can clearly see the different options on what they might choose. Obviously, for me, a big one is international sizing charts. Some of the US sizes, I have absolutely no idea what they are. And that's a key thing to share with buyers, especially if they have retail stores worldwide, because they're going to want to share this with their colleagues in the different countries. Highlight the inspiration behind the collection. Where did it come from? Why did you do what you did? Use text, use images, use video to do this. And also, for the hard goods around here, skis, snowboards, things like that, videos with commentary is a really good way of doing it. I mentioned it already, but this is coming from the brands themselves. So if you can go and do videos in your showroom, you can share them with your buyer via Dropbox or Google, then even better. On NuORDER, we have a tool where you can upload the videos and buyers can kind of explore it all within that. And that's another thing you can look into if you wanted. One of our pro tips we do with all of our brands is we say, think about contacting the buyer before your appointment. Some brands might not want to do this, but a lot of brands do. And if you can share something, like drip feed it for preview before your appointment, it will drive engagement and create some excitement, and they might have some questions ready to go once you launch your virtual appointment. So I want to give you some real life examples of how some outdoor brands that you might be aware of have taken advantage of this shift to digital. So firstly, Technica. Technica are the perfect example of a brand who knows the importance of their retail relationships and how working together collaboratively is going to lead to the best outcome for both the brand and the retailer. So Technica, use NuORDER as their B2B solution, and they see having, some form of B2B tool as a key piece of software in their tech stack to reinforce their commitment to connectivity and collaboration with their retail partners. For Technica, they found that this shift to digital has really made the buying process, 1, easier, 2, more effective, and also 3, highly collaborative. So this is, feedback from some key brands that are focused on this collaboration point once again. Another kind of real world example is a brand called Keen that we work with as well, that I'm sure you all know. So, Keen have partnered with NuORDER for a number of years and have spotted the need to digitalize early, right back in the day, way before Corona came into our lives, the coronavirus. So this early shift to virtual has meant that Keen were in a really strong position in early 2020 when the world changed. It's not about just making it through 2020, because this is here to stay. Even when, the virus is cured, and obviously, hopefully that's very soon, this isn't going to go back to the way it was. Digital is here to stay, as it is with B2C. And this is what drove Keen to focus on their digital transformation over the past few years. So as you can see on the screen, Keen wanted to streamline their order entry and reduce their environmental impact by basically transitioning its paper-based catalog system to a more digital model, if you like. And if the environment wasn't enough of a reason, I'm sure an extra, 45 grand in the bank probably was. Now, I want to tell you kind of one last customer story, this time about a brand that came on board to NuORDER in 2020, and they needed to pivot really, really quickly. So this customer, they didn't have a B2B tool when COVID hit. They came to us, our sales team in the summer in a bit of a panic because they had no way to sell. They hadn't been ready. They didn't have any, like Google Drive set up. They didn't have anything virtual. And so they came to us, back in probably April, May time. Our team and theirs, worked really efficiently to set them up for our new kind of virtual showroom, as well as all of our assortment and order taking tools to support their upcoming season. And, this isn't a joke. In the first 100 days alone, they collected $14 million in orders through NuORDER. So, that shift to digital, they did it in 2 weeks, and that was implementing a new B2B system. If you focus on the more quick wins, the Google Drives, the Microsofts, using Zoom, you can do that in a couple of days. The brand here, they entered COVID thinking this is going to be really tough. We're going to really struggle here. And, one of the best quotes I've heard this year, it was them declaring that NuORDER saved their bacon. So it was clearly this B2B digital selling tool that allowed them to keep their virtual doors open, keep their relationships with their kind of retail partners, and come out of this looking pretty much best in class. So there's a lot of different things you can focus on at different price points. And that's what I wanted to kind of get across today. It's not all about rolling out with a big B2B tool. You can do this in a much more simple manner as well. So I just want to finish up on where to focus in 2021 and beyond. What does this mean for you as a brand as we look to the new year? So, first things first, the retail landscape has shifted to online selling, and it's not just because of COVID. Whether brands are going direct to consumers themselves or deepening and acquiring, relationships with retailers who execute really well online, the ones I'm talking about, an online strategy is key to keeping business going in 2020, 2021 and beyond. We don't know when people are going to be able to return in person, physical shopping, the way it was before. But what we do know, and we can't say this, in any better way than one of our respondents, there is business in sales. It's about having proper infrastructure to support that demand. So this is as true as when you are selling to your retailers or direct to consumers. The second main takeaway is that consumer needs are changing. Everyone knows this. Not all brands are struggling in the same way. Some are struggling to keep up with demand, and we are seeing customers in certain industries outpace last year by more than 200%. So there really is different kind of levels of what people are going through right here. Products that help shift to an active lifestyle have come to the forefront of retail this year. And brands that are in these spaces, like probably a lot of you on this webinar today, or ones that are leaning into these trends, are really being rewarded and are going to continue to be rewarded going forward. This is why the majority of the outdoor sector is very well placed right now, especially as it gives everyone some escapism, I guess. So as long as you can kind of harness this shift to digital, I think the outdoor industry is probably one of the best placed industries to be in across the whole kind of apparel fashion sector. And then lastly, buyer expectations, they've evolved to be more modern. Brands should be evaluating, their wholesale processes to ensure that buyers are met with accurate and comprehensive information, that can translate to a better, more collaborative buying experience. Being able to immerse themselves in this digital experience is moving away from a nice to have to an expectation. Buyers are expecting this going forward. For any brands that, they perhaps are a bit stubborn, they don't want to move towards a digital side of things, they're going to find themselves left behind until the whole world opens up again, and it might be too late. So those that were most optimistic about the future, they had a diverse selling strategy in place. They have the right technical tools to support this process, and that's the key thing here. So have a think about what tools you can put in place in the short term. These quick wins. How can you pivot on what's happening in the market before the next appointment? And then perhaps think more medium to long term about what do we need to do to focus on this long-term, shift to virtual. Do we need to bring on a B2B tech solution? There's plenty of them on the market. Obviously, NuORDER is one of them, and would love to kind of demo you this directly to your brands, and our sales team can work with you. There's also, a lot of other versions that are a lot more light. So you can use, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world, to really help, drive this initial shift to digital. So I hope there are some, good quick wins there. People learned a few tips and tricks on what they could do and what they could put in place, starting from today. And I hope that everyone has a bit of sense of optimism about 2021 and beyond, especially within this this fun sector that we all work in terms of outdoor and snow sports. So let's move on to a few questions, and I'll answer them as best as I can.
All right, thanks so much for taking us through all of that, Tom. We do have a few that have come in. Excuse me if I do paraphrase your questions, as I'm kind of going through them right now. Somebody had a question about the survey that you mentioned in the beginning in regards to the increase in the immediate ordering. They're wondering if it's seen more with major retailers or key specialty stores.
To be honest, this is a key area for both. Obviously, for the big box retailers, they're worried right now. They have huge overheads. They have these massive retail plots in, retail parks and things like this. And a lot of them are looking to kind of downsize their operation and focus on like the key specialty sides of things. And part of that is really reducing this risk on overstock. They don't want to have a lot of stock sitting in their warehouse or sitting in their stores. So they'd much rather focus on what they know is selling well. They'll use the trends that are happening throughout the season to see what they want to focus on going forward. So there's definitely a shift with this with the big box retailers, but it's clear the smaller independent boutiques, they don't want to take a lot of risk on stock. So as a brand, you need to develop these relationships and work collaboratively with your specialist buyer, your specialist owner of the company, and come to a middle arrangement where you both take a bit of risk on stock, and that's probably the best way forward. But there's definitely appetite from both big box retailers as well as the smaller independents to avoid risk of overstock and focus more on in-season buying.
Perfect. Another question is best practices for engaging independent reps in the B2B practice.
Best practices for engaging independent reps. So do you mean within the retailer or reps within the brand?
I take this question to mean from the brand. So if a brand has independent sales reps working for them, how to get them kind of on board with this process.
Sure. So I think the best way of looking at that is this, going digital is only going to help them. As an independent rep, what they'd have to do is, come on site, come and learn about the product, get samples, and then they'll drive away and go and present to all of their buyers and retailers. The key thing about going digital is this makes it so much more easy for them. It's not about cutting them out of the equation. It's about giving them the support and giving them, the new means of selling. A lot of this, digitalization is going to give them more information than they ever have. So obviously independent agents, they'll probably make their money off some commission on what they sell. The more information they have, the better they are, the better informed they are to sell to their buyers. So if you have, videos on hand, videos on demand, they have these top tips and sell sheets. This is only going to benefit them both financially and in terms of their, commercial goals with all of their different brands that they work for. I think the key thing here is to reassure, the independent reps as well, like this is here to support the whole business. You don't need to come on site every week or every month. We can do this all virtually. This is going to save on cost as well for you in terms of, driving around. We can be a lot more efficient and effective. And then what they learn from you as a brand digitally, they can, replicate that when they have their virtual appointments with their buyers.
Great. We have a bunch of actually different best practices types of questions coming in here. So it'll be like a speed round for you.
Yeah.
Best practice for getting retailers on board with the digital process. For example, retailers that typically order in person, phone, or fax that are really hesitant to get on board with the digital experience.
I think the first thing is here is, get them on a virtual appointment. Send them a Zoom link. As soon as they log on and they see how easy it is to navigate, they're going to understand that they get so much more information from this. If they only ordered in person, as a sales rep or someone from the brand, they go and visit them. When you walk away, there's nothing left. You probably left a takeaway with them. You might have left a brochure, one of your catalogs. However, now it's digital. That buyer can access this on demand. And, we're working with a number of exclusive retailers in the US as well. So things like Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, NuORDER have exclusive agreements with these big brands. And they've seen this shift to digital, and they've got behind it. And this is going to be the same for a number of other retailers within the industry. So I think best practice is, really just get them on a virtual appointment to begin with, walk them through what you can offer them, work collaboratively. So set up this Google Drive. If you have a B2B tool like NuORDER, demo the system to them. It takes, 5 minutes to walk through the key aspects of it and really kind of drive home the benefits to the brand. If it's within the middle of the season, that buyer could log into NuORDER or they could log into Google and they could get updates on what's selling well. Perhaps, as a brand, what's trending well, what are the best sellers. Make sure you use this with your retailers. Keep them informed within the market as well as before the market.
Great. Do you have any tips for new players in the market to create some comfort with buyers? In a lot of cases, products are tactile and it's hard to interact with. And so if you're either a new brand or launching a new product, how do you really get that across?
I completely understand, that question and the concern there. And I think the key thing is here is, use the digital means to your advantage. So we have a number of options, like I mentioned. So you've got obviously video appointments. You have a live demonstration on some of these tactile products. Let's use, a new binding, as I mentioned before. So you can show how the boot is clicking into the binding. Also do videos, do on-demand videos where you've got, someone from the company actually demoing this and they can watch that on demand. So they can watch it again and again, shoot it from different angles, show the mechanism working. Also, do some top tips, do some information in terms of like a Google Doc or something like this, where they can go and see like the key specs. What is the specs? Understand all of the data points around that. So what's it made out of? What are the benefits of this compared to the old system, or perhaps what else is available on the market? So I would say, for the new guys here, really think about, diversifying in terms of the content that you can share with your buyer. It's not just about here's a video or here's a photo. Do like a whole 360 and think of different ways in which you can demonstrate, what your product does and why it's better. So video, virtual appointment, pull together some decks that show it, pull together some real world examples, perhaps take it to the slopes, give it to someone to demo so they can really see how it works in reality.
Perfect. We do have still a bunch more questions to get through. And in just an interest of time, I'm probably going to pick like 2 more. And then we'll follow up with other people directly on some of these questions that have come in. So somebody from either our team or NuORDER team will reach out to make sure you get the answers. So does your team, as part of the support, provide additional training to the reps to help them put together digital presentations?
Yeah, we do. So when a brand comes onto NuORDER, we have a number of teams within the company that are there to support the brand. So, you have your onboarding team. They will help get you set up on the portal. They'll make sure you're basically set up for success, that everything looks great. Once you've done that, we have our customer success team. That's what I'm part of, or the team I'm part of. And we have teams in Europe, we have teams in Australia, as well as a number of guys over in the US as well. And what we do is we train on every aspect of the system. So in terms of the admin settings, the back end, to make sure you know what you can do from a brand perspective, as well as the sales process. So we will work with you on your workflow. So, what is your usual workflow? What's your usual use case when you sell to a brand? We will work with you to understand that and why you do it that way. And then we'll set you up for success, and we'll train you exactly on what you can do on the NuORDER system in order to make the ordering process easier, as well as the visualization piece. So we can train you how to use the system, but we can also train you on what we see as the best practices for selling to these buyers. So it's a bit of a multi-pronged approach.
Great. So one last quick one, and it's going to be kind of rapid fire and, put your creativity to the test there. Tom, you ready? Okay.
Go on, hit me.
Can you throw out a couple quick ideas to really set your digital appointments apart from others? Like what have you seen that's like really cool or different or successful?
I think the best thing here, working with NuORDER, you see a lot of brands and a lot of brands digitalizations or transformations to digital, if you like. And the ones that stand out from the crowd really are the ones that invest their time into creating an amazing digital experience. So we have brands that have created their own virtual showroom. We have brands that think about how their buyers shop. So it's not just about buying this jacket or buying that underlayer. Think about it selling as a whole look. So if you sell multiple products, you can showcase the whole look to the buyer, and then they can add that whole look to the basket. So it might be boots, skis, salopettes, and a jacket. If a brand does all of these hard goods and soft goods, then you could sell that whole look rather than just the individual pieces of that look. Those are the brands that have got a lot of good feedback from buyers, the ones who are kind of thinking slightly outside the box. Videos are also really good. So a lot of buyers have, fed back how videos have really improved, the collaboration aspect, how they can understand on demand, what the different products are that the brands are kind of showcasing. As I said before, one of the biggest customer that I work with in the UK, in the middle of lockdown, they took their iPhones into their showroom and they literally, they filmed about a 20-second clip with a lot of different products with the sales rep that the buyer is used to, and a bit like Netflix of selling. They can go on demand, they can choose the different products. Is it jackets? Is it hard goods? Is it soft goods? Basically anything that gives the buyer the flexibility to see what they want. And what I would say is, as a brand, put yourself in the buyer's footsteps. If you're a buyer, what would you want to see? What would excite you? You don't want to see just Excel after Excel or Word doc. Granted, that's a great support, but you really need to excite your buyer and stand out from the crowd, because a lot of brands are going to be doing this.
Thank you for all of that. Sorry to put you on spot with some of those questions. I know they were coming from all different angles, so I appreciate your flexibility with that. So with that, I think we're going to wrap things up. I do have more questions still here. And like I said, Tom, we'll get these over to your team. So some of them are a little bit more technical, and we'll get those, answered for sure. And for everybody else, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Tom provided some great tips and tools for us, navigating this very different buy-sell season. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us at SIA, and we'll connect you with the appropriate person at the NuORDER team, or follow up with anything. This recording will be up on the website in the next 24 hours. So feel free to check back there and share it with any of your teams. But I think that's it for the day. So Tom, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise.
No, thank you everyone. And good luck for the upcoming market.
Thank you. Bye-bye.